All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our monthly meetup. I am Sarah Hoffman. I'm the Ohio School Counseling Association president, and I'm so proud to have that role. So I wanted to welcome everyone. I also wanted to introduce all of our guests today. So we have Michelle Grimm, who's the past president. So say hello, Michelle. Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry. Welcome, everyone.
that's that's how it works. It's just like trying to we're probably so sick of these Zoom meetings by this time. We have Willa Marie Jackson, who is our president-elect.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And then we have the director of College Credit Plus. We have Larisa Harper, Dr. Larisa Harper with us today. She's going to be talking about College Credit Plus.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here.
And we have Graham Wood, who is the Ohio Department of Education Graduation Requirements Program. Oh, I got to move this thing. Administrator. So Graham, say hello.
Hey, y'all. Sorry I have too long of a title.
And then Cassie Paulsgrove is, I don't know, I think she's watching the YouTube and she's managing the chat. So, but she is a integral part of our meetups here that we do once a month. I wanted to just do some housekeeping things. We have there's an agenda. I'm going to drop the link to the agenda in the chat here once I turn it over to Graham. And that in that agenda document has the certificate of attendance. It has the presentation that Dr. Larisa Harper is going to be sharing with us. So that presentation link is in that agenda. And there's a space for collaboration. And you can add, if you have questions about College Credit Plus, you can add it to that document. So we do a Google document that is shared and open to everyone to edit. And this is a nice thing that you can then take with you when you leave, and the document continues to grow. So if there are any, oh, my cat's going to talk to us right now. So if there are questions that you have, you can put it in the document. And then there is a spot for resources. So I added a couple resources down there, but if you have resources about College Credit Plus or anything that you're working on, you can put it right in there because sharing is caring. So I am going to stop sharing my screen right now, and I'm going to turn it over to Graham Wood. And thank you so much for everyone for coming today. And Graham Wood is going to talk about graduation planning.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. And I did want to mention before we jump into the context of today's presentation and the focus of today's meetup, I am very aware that everybody is interested to hear all about House Bill 67 and the implications of that brand new legislation that passed. We are actively working as much as we possibly can be on getting information available, finalized, and out to everybody. So we're hoping to get that out hopefully by the end of this week. But if you do have questions about House Bill 67, it's in the agenda as well, the email, but please feel free to send those to our grad requirements inbox. We have a separate folder that we're pulling those questions into. And if you do have questions, we'll get you the relevant information documents. It can also help us as we're developing information for those information documents that we have the right questions that folks are asking. So really appreciate if folks could send questions there. I know that that's the main focus, of a lot of people's minds right now, but we do want to make sure we have an incredible resource here in Dr. Harper and Becky Haar from the Department of Higher Education. And we want to make sure we take advantage of their time wisely today as we talk about College Credit Plus. So if you do have those questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our plan right now, I believe, is to host a separate meetup later next week on Thursday, April 1st. To talk about House Bill 67 and a little bit more information there. We are, that'll give us some time to get those information documents out and get that information to you, and we can talk through those and answer any questions. I believe the plan at this time is 4 o'clock, but we are definitely still finalizing those plans. We will get that information out to you as to when that next meetup will be as soon as possible. But I just wanted to share at the beginning, know a lot of people's minds are there right now. We're working on that, but unfortunately we don't have immediate answers today. Thank you so much. And I'm going to jump into a little bit of information about what will be the focus of this meetup and our next 3 meetups, or our next 2 meetups after this one, not including any other meetups that we might do, to talk about our competency alternatives. So as we look at the long-term graduation requirements, and as we think about the alternative demonstrations of competency, these are a huge part of this new package of graduation requirements that we have. So many of you have seen me present either here or somewhere else on these graduation requirements. And we have 3 main portions that we have to do that students will have to meet for these graduation requirements. First, they need to earn their course credits. That's our standard 20 course requirements. Second is competency. A lot of students will complete competency by earning a 684 on Algebra 1 and ELA 2. But if not, there are some alternative demonstrations of competency. And the third one is our SEALs. A lot of folks are fairly comfortable with the SEALs at this point. A lot of folks are very comfortable with our credit requirements, but where we're getting a lot of questions and what's new is this idea of competency. So we wanted to spend some time talking about competency here today as that second piece. And I wanted to speak both to competency on Ohio State tests and our alternatives. So first, most students will show competency by scoring a 684 on Algebra 1 and English Language Arts 2. These 2 assessments are the assessments that are directly tied to competency, and students would need to take those. And if they do not meet that score on Algebra 1 and English Language Arts 2, they would receive remediation, retake that test at some point in their high school career. And if they still do not meet that score, they have access to 3 competency alternatives. Today, we are going to focus on one of those competency alternatives, College Credit Plus, but I want to spend some time talking about all of those. Once again, that score for these assessments is 684 for both of them. Many of you are very aware of that at this point, but just to make sure. First is military enlistment, showing evidence of enlistment in a branch of the armed services. Second, College Credit Plus. And third are our career-focused competency alternatives. And these provide a wide menu of the future options that a student might have. Some students, it will make sense to go into military enlistment as a competency alternative because that's where they want to pursue a future path. For some students, College Credit Plus will be the most sensible option because they're interested in going to college. That is the next best step for them. And as much as we can prepare them for that, great. Other folks will be interested in a career. They'll be interested in focusing on that career next step or a step further down the road if they, that's a part of their pathway. And the competency alternatives that are career focused will be the best option for them. But the thing to think about throughout all of this is focusing it in on a student's plan for graduation. So their graduation plan, which is a requirement for every student, is a great place in a student's freshman year to start thinking about their alternative to competency. Even if a student is, not going to end up at the end needing that competency alternative, they end up meeting that competency score on the way. There's no problem with planning out what a student's competency alternative might be. And a huge focus of that should be that student's post-high school goals. So considering what a student wants to do after high school, and then making the choices for them throughout their credit requirements, throughout their competency alternatives, throughout their SEALs, that make sense based on what that student's post-high school goals might be. A huge opportunity that comes through with these graduation requirements is the opportunity not only create pathways to graduation, but to create pathways through graduation into whatever that next best step or next step might be, So that's why, as we think about these competency alternatives, graduation planning can be a huge tool in helping students best select which competency alternative might be right for them if they need one. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we can dig into our first alternative to competency that we're going to talk about in this little series here. And I am excited to pass the ball over to Dr. Larisa Harper. Dr. Harper is here to share with us about College Credit Plus generally. So Dr. Harper is going to share, and then we will have a little bit of time at the end for questions related to College Credit Plus, its applications with graduation, or any just general questions you have about College Credit Plus. So remember, feel free to put those questions in the either the chat box or in the agenda. But without further ado, Dr. Harper, thank you.
Thank you, Graham. I am searching for my PowerPoint so that I can bring that screen up. I've got far too many documents open, obviously. So there it is, the very last choice. So hopefully you are able to see this adequately. Hopefully I can make it bigger too. There we go. So again, thanks, Graham, and thanks, Sarah, and Willa Marie and Michelle. Thank you all for your partnership with the Department of Education, the Department of Higher Education, as we continue to work to provide as much information as possible for school counselors. We know that you have a heavy lift when it comes to College Credit Plus, and we truly do appreciate your work and your commitment to your students. So we wanted to just hit a few highlights about College Credit Plus today. And Graham mentioned that Becky Haar is also on the phone with us. She is our program manager for College Credit Plus. And while she covers really anything with College Credit Plus, her primary focus is on innovative programs and our early college high schools. So if you happen to have any specific questions about either of those topics, Becky would be your go-to person. Otherwise, my contact information is on the screen, along with our webpage. This is a very information-rich webpage, especially the tab that you will see when you go into that web address under resources. So take a minute to jot down that address, please. And I know our agenda is also with it, or our presentation is also within your agenda. So I hope you're able to pull that down easily. So we thought we would talk a little bit about what we're living through in terms of COVID right now. When all of this occurred just about a year ago, we were able to work with the state legislature to provide some flexibilities within College Credit Plus. And we know some other legislation went through to help you with other topics. But if we look specifically at College Credit Plus, these students, as you know, are trying to straddle both the K-12 world and the college world. And so this puts them in quite a unique situation as they are working to handle both sectors and both worlds that they're living in. And when COVID turned everything upside down, there were really a lot of concerns for these students and what they could do moving forward. So that legislation was in March. We released some additional information in November, though, that will really take us forward. And I can see I have a typo on this screen. We'll make sure the official document on your agenda is updated. But the legislation that passed in November and our guidance document that we posted on our website is for this current academic year, 2020 to 2021, and next academic year, 2021 to 2022. That's where you see the typo. So we'll make sure that's updated. These flexibilities will be in place unless other legislation is enacted. And we'll talk a little bit about legislation in another screen too. So some of the highlights of these flexibilities center on student access and student performance, specifically with the intent to participate. For students who attend public schools, they need to give that form directly to the public school office. Usually it is the school counselor's office. Some districts handle it differently, but that form needs to be turned into you. And normally it is due on April 1st on an annual basis. Due to COVID, we have delayed that deadline to May 1st. Keep in mind, of course, that May 1st is a Saturday, and we usually request that you bump that to the next business day of May 3rd. But it is currently May 1st. It does give students a few more weeks to consider whether or not they want to participate, and it gives you a few more weeks to get information to students and collect that information. These intent to participate forms are truly not just to take up space or to give you another form to file away. The intention, from what we understand from the legislature, was that it was supposed to help districts accurately, or at least closely, determine how many students might participate in the program the next year. So that is why it's an important document for you to receive and review. For private schools or non-public schools and homeschooled families, the intent to participate is actually embedded right in the funding application for College Credit Plus. So as you know, if you work with private schools, or if you have any conversations with homeschooled families, they are responsible for directly connecting to the Department of Education to request funds, and that is done through a funding application. So all of that is embedded together. We do have information on our website. An instruction manual is available. It's about 45 pages long, and it goes step by step with screenshots and FAQs and a lot of great information for families as they work through that process. That also has been delayed to May 1st in our official paperwork, but because May 1st is on a Saturday, we will not officially close that application until Monday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. There will be no extensions or late applications accepted, as we say every year. Excuse me. For students who struggle with their college courses and earn failing grades, or they withdraw late, and if those activities are due directly to COVID impacts, then there's guidance in our document that talks about whether or not the district can seek reimbursement for those failures and withdrawals. So please take a look at that. If you have situations where you know you have students who truly were impacted by COVID and therefore they earned a failing grade or they took a late withdrawal, you would need to check that to see if you can seek reimbursement. In general, if it is COVID related, you cannot seek reimbursement. Just like you cannot seek reimbursement for economically disadvantaged students. So this just throws in the COVID impact to help those students out. Some colleges are offering a pass-fail option during COVID. This is always a tough subject because what do we do with a pass-fail grade at the high school? How does it impact GPA? How does it impact all of the different things that you're considering that Graham talked about with regard to graduation? We do just want you to know that it is allowable to take advantage of a pass-fail option, but that the students are highly encouraged to talk to both their college advisor as well as their school counselor to make sure that that option is a good one for them. Again, they should really only be considering that option if it's COVID related, but every college is handling that a little differently. So you'll need to encourage the students to talk to their college advisor for that reason. And we just want to make sure that students are well informed before they make that decision. Student eligibility is probably the biggest item in the flexibilities document. And normally we would require assessment testing to be done for students to participate in the program. Because assessment testing has been decreased in availability due to COVID, we now give the flexibility that a student can be considered eligible if he or she has a cumulative high school GPA unweighted of 3.0. So in lieu of a test, a student could be eligible for College Credit Plus based on their GPA. If testing is available, that is the preferred. That also impacts the courses a student might take. So there are additional reasons, not just for eligibility, that assessment testing is needed, but if in the event it's unavailable due to COVID, students can be considered based on GPA. We are currently in the process of reviewing all of the rules for College Credit Plus. Every 5 years, agencies must review those rules, and these are part of the Ohio Administrative Code, specifically referring to College Credit Plus. We have about 14 rules. I shouldn't say about, we have 14 rules for College Credit Plus, and we have spent the last year reviewing those, and we have made some revisions, proposed revisions for those, so that they are more clear, so that they're up to date, so that they make more sense for where we are now in relation to the 6th year of College Credit Plus. We encourage you to go to our website as listed there under resources. The rules are all posted, along with information about if you want to participate in a public hearing. That hearing will be on March 30th at 11 a.m. If you want to sign up to speak at the hearing, if you feel so inclined to tell us what your thoughts are about the rules that we have revised and have posted, you need to sign up by today for that. We've had that available for a couple of weeks now, but visit our website if you want to sign up to publicly comment on the rules. Otherwise, you can send comments directly to my email address through March 30th, that day, close of business. For student eligibility, we talked about that earlier under the COVID flexibility. We did host several meetings with a work group, which was made up of both secondary school and college representatives and members of associations. So OSCA was included, and several from both the K-12 sector and the college sector. So they gave us their input on what might we consider with regard to student eligibility moving forward. Is a student GPA the better measure of student readiness? Is it a combination of things, GPA and test, or GPA and course performance in prior courses? We looked at all of those because we truly wanted to take a look at what our current eligibility requirements are and how that impacts certain subgroups of students, specifically students of color and students who are from low-income families. We also had a long, lengthy conversation about students who are interested in career technical courses, and perhaps those students aren't served well by assessment tests. And so some of the recommendations that the student eligibility group has provided to us is really great insight, and we'll be moving forward with reviewing that recommendation. Now, keep in mind that student eligibility is part of statute, and it's something that we just can't change automatically. We would have to work with the state legislature if we have stakeholders who are recommending changes. So that really does bring us to the budget and some other bills that you might see in the next 6 months. House Bill 110, and I know 67 is the one that's really on your mind today, but House Bill 110 is the budget bill, the biennium budget bill. And there are a couple of considerations for College Credit Plus in there, specifically around certain language with regard to students who attend Ohio School for the Blind or Ohio School for the Deaf, or students who are perhaps in juvenile detention centers. But it also talks about the student eligibility question. And the language that is currently proposed in House Bill 110 would provide the Department of Education and the Department of Higher Education to come up with new or other eligibility measurements. So that work group that just met over the last few months has really provided us the foundation for moving forward on student eligibility. But that's only if House Bill 110 passes with that language still included. And that's a process that starts in February and it won't end until probably June 30th at midnight, when the governor needs to sign it. And, sometimes it even goes beyond June 30th if they're unable to come to an agreement. But usually June 30th, if it's still in there, then we can move forward with additional student eligibility discussions. And we'll be coming to you, your association, and others to get your feedback. Also, this is the season for bills. This is budget bill time. This is a time when we have new legislators on board, and we have individuals who want to create some new rules around College Credit Plus and many other topics, of course. But we just want to remind you that as you hear about possible new bills or amendments to House Bill 110, all of this has to go through its proper process with regard to testimony and committee hearings and a lot of input from stakeholders. So just as you did with 67, we're going to continue to learn what it really says and how it might impact College Credit Plus in the future. And that takes time. So we appreciate your patience as we work through those. Keep an eye on our website because we will start posting information about the different bills that are out there and what their status currently is. And always remember, Schoolhouse Rock, if you haven't watched that in a while, it will brighten your day, but it reminds you that it is a long process. So I'm going to toss it back to Graham for the next section.
And truly, the next section that we have is just an opportunity for question and answer for folks who have questions about College Credit Plus to talk through those.
So we have a couple questions, Larissa. So here's the question page. And I know a lot of people have questions about House Bill 67. And like Graham said, we are working to have a special meetup just about House Bill 67 and graduation requirements on April 1st. No fooling. And we won't do any April Fool's jokes about graduation requirements, we promise. But just to help Graham and ODE like collect your questions, they have one email address right here that is in the agenda. So if you could, we will, of course, because there's a lot of people putting questions in this document. And of course, Graham is going to cut and paste those and take them with him. But if you think of more questions tomorrow, I don't want you putting it in this document. I want you sending it to, let me see, let me scroll over here. I just, grad requirements at educationohio.gov. So just so they are, Graham is creating this document and he, needs to hear from you. So, and then just keep an eye on our Facebook page. So we will post the information on the OSCA Facebook page and the high school page too. So Larissa, and this is kind of a Graham question too. If a student takes a CCP English class instead of English 2, so like their sophomore English, and that ELA 2 is where that graduation competency comes in, do they still have to take the ELA 2 test before I can count the CCP English class for competency? So if you guys could hop in and answer that question. And this person did leave their email address so we could contact them.
Yeah, and I think this is a me question more than a Larissa question. The answer is yes. So to access the competency alternative, a student does have to attempt that assessment actually twice before they can actually use that competency alternative to graduate. Now, that does not mean that a student needs to attempt that assessment twice before earning that College Credit Plus credit. So let's run a timeline. A student, in their sophomore year, when they would be taking English Language Arts 2, the course, whatever that's titled at your local school, they take that course. They do not meet the competency alternative score, but in their junior year, they enroll in College Credit Plus, and they're taking a College Credit Plus English course through, the local college. The student earns College Credit Plus credit in that junior year in English Language Arts. Then they retake that assessment at the end of their junior year, that English Language Arts 2 assessment, say they still don't meet the competency alternative score or the competency score, they have then met that requirement for competency for English Language Arts because they have earned that college credit plus credit, and they have kind of accessed that competency alternative by taking that assessment twice, assuming that they're receiving that remediation between the two. Another point that I want to make, especially just in regard to college credit plus as a competency alternative, that one can be specific to the subject area that the student didn't pass. So if a student split their competency alternative, they passed their Algebra 1 competency, they met that competency score, but they didn't get that English Language Arts score, they would only need to earn college credit plus credit in English Language Arts. The inverse is true as well. Student, only needs to earn math credit in college credit plus if they didn't meet the college credit competency score. Words, I'm struggling today. The competency score in math. So that goes both ways.
Okay. So you're saying that they would have to retake it if they didn't meet that competency score, but if they met it, obviously they're good to go.
Right. Yeah. If they meet the competency score, then they don't need to worry about, a competency alternative specific to that subject. But, they do need to meet competency in both subject areas, in Algebra 1 and English Language Arts 2. For the other two competency alternatives, military enlistment and career focused, it's all or nothing. So if they don't pass one subject or don't meet competency in one subject, they do in another. There's no split requirement for military enlistment or for career focused. The only split requirement is here for college credit plus, where it's subject specific.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. And I think this is for Larisa. Is there any talk of removing the 7th and 8th graders from the CCP law?
Sure. Yes, I hear that talk every so often. I do want to mention, just as a follow-up to what Graham just discussed with the regard to the test, we do have a document that we call our high school crosswalk document. And again, it's on our website, the ohiohighered.org/CCP, and it's on the resources tab. And just look for graduation information and you'll see the crosswalk. And it reviews exactly what Graham just described in a slightly different way, but the same information is all there. So it's a really great document for folks to get their hands on. And then with regard to 7th and 8th graders, most of the talk we hear about 7th and 8th graders is from professionals in the field. Both the secondary school and the colleges have various concerns about 7th and 8th graders. What we have found data-wise, though, is that the number of students participating in the 7th and 8th grade are very low. The total population, the total number of those students participating throughout the state is usually around 200. And so it's a very small group compared to our overall numbers in the 78,000 area for the year. And those students do remarkably well. Their GPAs are very good. They're over 3.0 and on average. So it's really hard to distinguish between, allowing them to participate and saying that they should or should not be removed if they are doing so well and if it's a small group. Of course, it is statutorily required. So it is something that, just like the assessment testing, would have to be addressed by the legislature. It's not something that either agency can just automatically change within our rule process. Our student eligibility work group that I mentioned earlier, they had a long conversation about 7th and 8th graders as well. And so we've heard the concerns. We're investigating what might be done to address the concerns, if at all possible. And we welcome you to send those in to us if you have specific concerns or data that contradict what we're seeing at the state level. So we're definitely open to the conversation, but right now there's no immediate change in the works for 7th and 8th graders to be excluded.
All right. I am, and thank you, Graham. I saw that you put the link to to the document Larissa was talking about. So I appreciate that. So this document is a great thing that you can continue to add resources to. I know I put some stuff. We did at my high school. We did an infographic on the graduation requirements for 2023 and above, and then this year and our juniors. So I put that link in the chat. Or I'm sorry, not in the chat. I'm so used to saying that. I put the link in that shared document so you guys can take a look at that. And it's just any way that we could get the information out to students. And I'm a visual person, so if I love infographics, so we all appreciate that. And I made one for the school about CCP. I should put that in there about like this are the steps that you have to go through. But thank you so much. I'm going through the document. It doesn't look like there are any other questions about CCP. You did a nice job.
Sarah?
Yes.
There is a question in the YouTube chat.
Oh, great. Okay, Willa Marie.
Yep. So what I see, this is from Ellen Shope. Graham, would you mind discussing options for an out-of-state senior to graduate if they were to transfer now? Is that more going towards that bill? Is that something I didn't read it thoroughly, sorry.
Yeah, that sounds like something more toward the House Bill 67, and we're hoping to have our, next Thursday, but.
Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
I can definitely touch on that next Thursday. I mean, I think likely most folks understand there's going to be options in there for that student that are included in House Bill 67 with a lot of that graduation flexibility that's there. So yeah, I mean, those are usually really tough situations in a normal year, but thankfully I think with that House Bill 67 flexibility, there should be an option for that student. So yeah, absolutely. Unless there are other questions in the chat, Will and Marie, there's one thing that I wanted to bring up that I get almost every time I talk about College Credit Plus as a competency alternative, and I'm surprised nobody's brought it up today, but maybe folks just know that we know and are expecting us to bring it up. So is there anything else, Will and Marie?
I do not see anything that is specific to CCP. We're trying to stay on task.
Okay.
Yep. So I think we're good here. Well,
the one that I wanted to ask is, well, and it's not necessarily ask, it's just kind of bring up, is, these competency alternatives are targeted for students, and there'll be, the option for students that are not meeting that competency score. And, we're all aware that there's often a correlation between the scores that a student will get on one test that's specific to a subject and another. So I often hear when I'm presenting on graduation, my students who aren't meeting the competency score may not be eligible, under traditional eligibility requirements for College Credit Plus. What are my options there? So I wanted to share what I often share as, a potential solution, but I wanted to open the door to Larisa as well to provide any other insight, because, we've got the expert here. It's always nice to check in. And I always mention one, the potential for an innovative program that, specifically if it's, serving a traditionally underserved population of students. And you have, a large group of students at your school that may, one, benefit from College Credit Plus, and two, benefit from, some additional services related to that College Credit Plus experience, and you're able to work with a higher ed partner in your local area. Exploring that innovative program waiver might be a great option. Now, that application did just recently close for this next school year, but the nice thing is that, there are, some flexible eligibility requirements for students next year that aren't just, assessment related. So there's a little bit of, opportunity there, and an innovative program may be something to think about as we move forward into the future. I think it may be a great opportunity for us to host, potentially in the fall, when folks are starting to think about planning for the following school year and when that conversation might need to happen. Larisa, maybe we can have you and also Becky back, because Becky is the the leader on innovative programs, to talk about that and to discuss that waiver and what might be available there. And the other would be, you know, just for this next year, especially, there are some flexibilities there in terms of eligibility. So that can be an option, at least for now. Larisa, anything else to add there?
No, you nailed it. And it would be great to have a session like this in the fall, early fall, if at all possible, so that you have plenty of time to talk it through with a college partner. It is a college and a secondary school partnership, so that needs to be in there, and it needs to be strong, like Graham said. You know, just keeping in mind that we are always looking for ideas and ways to help students. And so as innovative thoughts pop into your head about eligibility, please send those our way. We are very eager to learn what you have experienced with regard to the 3.0 GPA that's currently in place for flexibility, or the assessment testing, because we're just now starting to collect the data on how those students performed over the summer, fall, and now spring of this academic year with regard to College Credit Plus. We have lots to learn still, and we appreciate your input.
Yeah, we have Larisa, we have another question in the chat that just popped up. And it's sort of one of those hypotheticals. Is there any discussion on limits on courses students can take under CCP? I know there's a tier 1 and a tier 2, but is there any other discussion on limits?
No, there are no discussions. Now, of course, there is the current limitation of 30 credits per academic year. And of course, those include both high school credits and college credits. That's still in place. And then our non-public or private school and our homeschool families tend to be limited just due to the number of applications we receive and the limited funds that we are allocated to provide to those families. But otherwise, there's no discussion about limiting, to my knowledge.
Okay. And I'm not sure if Jody had a specific like course in mind when she, you know, when she put that question in there, because I know, you know, like anything, you open something like this open, you know, up, and then you have kids taking, you know, some classes that are a little goofy.
That's a really good point, Sarah. Like you mentioned, we have the level 1 and the level 2, so that students are brought in taking courses that we find that are on a pathway or that are transferable. And then, of course, we recommend that students do follow a career pathway as much as possible so that they're using those credits wisely toward a certificate or degree. And there's always been discussion about, you know, appropriateness of certain courses for for high school students. But currently, there has been some discussion about it. Whether we see a bill on that or not, I'm not sure. There's a possibility we'll see a bill on courses that are adult content in nature, but we haven't seen it yet, so it may not occur.
Right, because I know there's a local college by me, and it's a cool program, but it's all about beer brewing, and it's so very cool. But you know, you wonder if something like that would, yeah. So I think that's maybe where Jody's coming from.
Maybe. And we leave a lot of that discretion to the college as well. You know, perhaps that's a course that needs to be limited based on the legal age of, you know, alcoholic beverages in Ohio. But a lot of times we just leave it to the college to determine those prerequisites.
Well, that makes sense. And of course, there's more questions about House Bill 67 that I hate to just ignore, but just know that Graham and ODE, they are working on. Graham, tell them.
No, yeah, I was going to say, I saw another question. I had pulled up the YouTube over here on my other screen from Donna. And Donna, I think that question is specific more generally just to students with disabilities, and specifically students, I'm assuming students who are excused from the consequences of the assessment, and how that would impact Algebra 1 and English Language Arts 2 and this competency portion. And that's a great question, because that is a piece that we haven't shared a ton of guidance about. One of the reasons is because we're hoping for a little bit of legislative clarification there. We've asked for a little bit more clarity as to exactly how that exemption and that excusal from the consequences would apply. And that's kind of outside of the bubble of this year. That's more generally thinking through that how that excusal will apply. We're hoping to get more information on that. Currently, our understanding is that the excusal would apply to competency and not to the seal requirement, so that a student who's excused from the consequences of assessment would be excused from the requirement to meet that competency score or a competency alternative, but would still have to earn 2 seals. But like I said, that is all kind of, preliminary at this point. We're working on getting those details as to exactly how that's going to play out. The moment that we know for sure, we'll communicate quickly and widely about that. But that's not something that was included in House Bill 67. That's a little bit broader of a conversation that may happen, at some point, potentially through the state budget or through some other vehicle this summer, if it is addressed. So.
All right, I'm going to peek back at this document, the shared document, just to make sure that we're not missing anything. All right. There is a 30-second delay, so I need to just kind of ramble for a little bit before I turn off the streaming, or we'll cut Graham's response right in half. So thank you for everyone that joined us here today. We had a good group of people. I really appreciate it. And you keep watching the Facebook OSCA page, Ohio School Counseling Association page. I put the link in the chat. So make sure that you follow us, and we will post the link to the April 1st. We just want to make sure that is 100%. I don't want to post it and then have to cancel it. So Graham and I will talk about that, and we'll get that out to you. And just thanks everyone for coming, and we can just kind of hang out a little bit, like Graham and Michelle and stuff. But Dr. Harper, thank you so much. I know you are so busy, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to do this for our counselors. And this is available. The YouTube video is available, it'll be out there forever with all the other YouTube videos until we decide to pull it down. So thank you guys so very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.